wouldn't be surprised if there was a slight bit of disbelief just reading the title of this video. Because even though it has been that long, it doesn't feel like it's been 25 years since The Fast and the Furious. It feels like it's been such a constant part of life, whether it's with the movies that came after it, or whether it's just with, revisiting this one and just the world surrounding this, the characters who have become such a part of our lives with all of the movies that have come. It feels so much more recent. And yet, it's now a quarter of a century old. It's actually out in theaters again later this year, and I look forward to seeing it on the big screen again. But today marks the actual 25th anniversary, and I just rewatched the movie, and I wanted to talk about it because the Fast and the Furious movies for me are constant sources of pleasure. Even when things get really ridiculous in some of the later installments, even like the last couple of them, there's always such a sense of entertainment that I've gotten out of this franchise and the characters who I've come to grow so fond of over the years now that I'll always be seated for a new Fast and Furious movie. I'll always be there for a new adventure with the family as they are now. But going back to this first one, the simpler times as it were, I remember watching this for the first time in basically the best moment you can possibly think of, which is being obsessed with racing games. I was a huge fan of stuff like Need for Speed, Underground 2, and Most Wanted. I put a lot of hours into those two games, and that was around the time that I started watching the Fast and Furious movies. I was a little out of sync for the initial few. Like, I didn't see this one when it came out, or Too Fast, Too Furious, or Tokyo Drift. I got more in line with things around the time 5 was about to come out, so then I watched Fast and Furious, the fourth one, and then subsequently I've been there for the most part. And I remember just thinking, well, this is great. Now I get to watch something which has a lot of these racing sequences too. My friends were huge fans of the movies as well. There was a constant rewatches that were going on when I was in school, and there were a lot of my friends and peers who were really, really interested in the Fast and Furious movies, as well as other racing games as well. And so all of those things kind of just synced up perfectly when it came to talking about them, getting big, to become a fan of this franchise, and just, wanting to be excited for what the next adventure would be like, or what's the next thing that would happen with this crew and whatever the racing sequences might look like. But the reason I actually felt like this would be a really great look back to also do is because now when you look at everything else that's come after this, especially the last few movies, it's so interesting to look at those and go, we started here. Street racing was what this began with. I mean, the biggest threat that we were dealing with here was the fact that there were Panasonic DVD players and TVs that were being taken from trucks, and they were being robbed up to like $1 million the worth of those, and that they had to find out who was doing this and take down the crew. We went from that to global annihilation, where cars are going into space and villains who are connected across movies. Like, oh, we are the architects of all of this destruction. It's just very interesting to see all of that now and then, go back to this one. But the simplicity of this one, The Fast and the Furious, I've always found very endearing. And rewatching it just now, yes, there is a storyline, of course, surrounding it, well, like I just said, but the characters are all quite enjoyable. Looking back on it, you wouldn't cast this any other way. At least I wouldn't. Like Vin Diesel as Dominic Toretto, that is the best person that you could have chosen for this role. Over here, he has so many great moments, so many great quotes that are now, staples of the franchise. And I think he nailed all of those moments.
I live my life a quarter mile at a time. You almost had me. You never had me. You never had your car.
This is your car.
My car? I said a 10-second car, not a 10-minute car.
He plays this gruff, hardened driver who very clearly has a soft spot. He wants to take care of those around him. He wants to be there for them, but he's also looking out for the fact that, there are people around him who we can't always trust, and that things could go horribly wrong. And so there is that edge to him that, it makes the things that are going on with Brian, Paul Walker, as he's working as an undercover cop with this crew, it makes him also a little reluctant at times, because he's like, well, I know you guys are closing in on him, but I don't feel right about this. I feel like there's stuff to him that we don't really know. Granted that some of that, him being involved with Mia, Jordana Brewster, makes that a little more so. But then on top of that, again, just the way that they're realized. What I just said for Vin Diesel earlier is something that I can, again, say for Paul Walker. I mean, I think him as Brian O'Connor, I don't think anyone else would work for that role. Like, specifically the way that it is done, I think he's great. It's sad that he's no longer around, unfortunately. There's trying, I'm sure they're gonna try and do something for Fast Forever when that comes out, because he's not gone in universe. Like, they keep mentioning him. But I thought that the time that we got with him in this role was really, really great. All these characters have gone on to become such, interesting ones over the years too, and some great moments with them, with Mia, of course, with Letty, Michelle Rodriguez, who has a very interesting arc, as you'll know, with the future movies. But they realized them just so simply. Like, you had enough to work off of to create some connections with them, and they did that so well. But eventually the main attraction, the racing sequences, when those kicked in, they're so vibrantly done, and Rob Cohen did a really great job of directing them and making them feel like you were within the driver's seat as they were happening, especially when you're really hitting top speeds and the NOS kicks in and those cars go speeding, and some of those effects were really, really nicely handled. And they're so vivid and colorful, and they all have this identity around them, especially like the cars, for example. Like, every car feels like it's almost color coded to characters. This is especially in Too Fast, Too Furious, where they really make that even more blatant, and then in Tokyo Drift as well. But I really like that aspect of the earlier movies. In fact, in the later ones, I wish that was there a little bit more. Like, every now and then there's a character or two who has a car that feels like it just matches, the clothes that they're wearing and stuff like that. And it's just something that visually adds so much to it. So going back to this first movie and seeing that again was really fun. And the soundtrack, which is so much fun, whether it's the score by BT, which is really awesome, or it's the songs like, from Ja Rule or whoever else. I forgot Limp Bizkit plays in this movie. Like, when Brian first shows up to the first race, and Rolling is playing, I completely forgot about that. That made me laugh when I was watching it earlier. And what I said about the characterization also earlier, like I said, there's just enough to go off of with some of those moments. Like, at the later part of the movie, when Brian is becoming more and more involved in this and eventually does reveal that he is an undercover cop, despite suspicions throughout the movie, and, trying to work with Dom in the best way to figure out who might be doing all of this, robberies with the DVD players and whatnot. Eventually, when one of those heists goes horribly wrong, and it's a really well directed, very tense sequence when that happens, and then there's a rescue that's planned and Brian reveals that he is a cop. That final chase sequence that happens, the fact that Dom and Brian are now not on the same page anymore. They obviously cannot trust each other anymore because Brian's a cop, but still working together to the fact that they want to take down Johnny Tran, and then that final chase sequence taking place, and then the bit where Dom and Brian are neck and neck with each other as he has to apprehend Dom now, and they're driving towards towards the end of the quarter mile where the train is coming. Another really well done sequence. And then that final bit works pretty well where he lets Dom go, because going back to the first race of the movie where Brian lost and he owed Dom a 10-second car, it goes back to that entire thing, and he got that 10-second car. So it brings that around really well too.
You know what you're doing?
I owe you a 10-second car.
And that being the last line of the movie, barring the post-credit scene with Dom driving in Mexico, talking about living life a quarter mile at a time. And then, of course, the subsequent movies have developed on that in some pretty big ways. Now they are actual family. But yeah, overall, I think The Fast and the Furious is still a really engaging time. It's not perfect by any stretch of the word. I mean, there's definitely things about it that could be a lot better. The dialogue is, pretty not great, to say the least. The storytelling is pretty sparse. Some of the moments with the visual effects, like every now and then you can tell when it's a stuntman and not Paul Walker or Vin Diesel, especially Paul Walker. Like there's a scene where he's trying to rescue Vince from that truck because the wire has him caught up. You can clearly see in moments that there's a stuntman on top of the car and it's not Brian, like a Paul Walker. So those moments, yeah, definitely were a bit more noticeable, I think, especially when you're watching it in like 4K. But overall, I still really, really enjoy The Fast and the Furious, and I just enjoy the franchise in general. I actually really want to talk about all of these movies, the ones I have not talked about, because I've talked about the recent crop, but maybe, from Too Fast, Too Furious and beyond, I will talk more about those in the future. So let me know what you guys think of The Fast and the Furious 25 years on, and if you guys are going to check it out in theaters when the re-release happens. And thank you very much, as always, for watching once again. Look forward to more videos very soon, guys. It always gives me a great pleasure to share my thoughts with y'all. And if you're new to the channel and if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.